Hello and welcome to another edition of Circle Time, the Early Years podcast. I'm Glenn Denny and I'm delighted this week to be joined by the founder of training and consultancy, Early Years Reflections, Melanie Shepherd. Melanie, welcome along.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. So, Melanie, you're literally not that far from me. We live in the same area.
Yeah, yeah, we're really close, aren't we?
I know it's not often I get to talk to somebody and they are literally just up the road from me, which is strange because we're
Yeah.
still doing this in the usual way. But it's so lovely. So tell us a little bit about yourself first of all. What's your background in early years?
Yeah, so I trained as a primary school teacher initially. That's what I kind of did at first, but always kind of drifted towards the kind of nursery reception end. And that was kind of in London. And then when I moved up to York, I kind of ended up in nurseries a little bit by accident and sort of fell in love and have been here since. So I kind of worked from practitioner up through kind of leadership management. And then my most recent role within a nursery was head of quality and childcare. And then towards the end of last year, I've set that up as sort of a business on my own. So kind of focusing on supporting settings to develop their quality, but also supporting staff teams and that kind of thing as well. Just wherever's needed really for that setting.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. Yeah. And it's good that you've kind of gone through that whole thing of going, early years through and through, and you've worked your way up as well. So you've got that really good understanding from the floor all the way up as well, to be able to kind of give that real life support.
Yeah, kind of been through a range of different roles, so can kind of sympathize, I guess, with the challenges that people face at different sort of levels of early years.
Definitely, definitely. Now, our topic today we were going to be talking about is well-being, but not necessarily looking at children's well-being. That's a whole other subject for another time.
Yeah.
But we're actually looking at an important subject, which is the well-being of the team and what we can do to support that and what things that we can do to put in place. So, how do you go about it? What do you feel is important to start with?
It's a big question, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
I think I think the thing is that we do talk a lot about children's well-being, but I think it's that thing of kind of putting your own sort of life vest on first on the aeroplane. And we have to be looking after ourselves as adults before we can kind of support children's well-being as well. So I think it almost needs to come first, even though it's not always the first thing that people think about necessarily. But yeah, it is a big question. I think there's obviously an issue with pay and sort of that kind of side of stuff, which is kind of a separate thing that we can't necessarily do a huge amount
Oh,
about.
we haven't got time on a podcast for that
No,
one.
we haven't got time. So I think it's like finding ways to support staff wellbeing and show that appreciation without it having to necessarily cost a huge amount, or nurseries don't have a load of spare cash kicking around at the minute, especially with various new announcements that are
Oh yes.
always being made. So I think it's about finding little ways that you can appreciate your team. And I think the big thing is getting to know your team and knowing what they value in terms of appreciation and well-being.
Yeah, I mean, you said something there that instantly put a light on in my mind. In one setting I worked in as the manager, the well-being of the staff was really, really low. And I think what you said there about getting to know the staff, I think I learned. It took me a little while to get, this was my first manager's job, and it took me a while to realize that, but actually getting to know each of the staff members and their likes, dislikes, how they worked, the way they are, and why, importantly, they are the way they are, actually helped to support them. And I had staff coming up to me sort of many months down the line that they actually felt supported and listened to. That was an important thing as well. And that was kind of revolutionary for them as well as for me. I'm like, okay, nobody was listening to you before? What?
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like it's really an obvious thing, doesn't it? But unfortunately, in a lot of, not just early years, but in general, in a lot of places, that isn't always happening, is it? The staff don't feel valued. And I think that straight away, you're fighting a losing battle if they're not feeling valued. Anything else you put in place, any sort of perks and benefits and that kind of thing, it just feels tokenistic if they don't actually feel valued when they're there.
I think that's it. I think that's kind of the bedrock of it, really, isn't it? Is that ensuring that your staff genuinely feel valued and supported, and
Hmm.
then all the other things that you do actually have more meaning and more impact. So,
Yeah.
Cake Friday, it's just
Yeah.
like you say, it was tokenistic if you don't know that, one member of your staff's actually gluten free and you don't bring a
Yeah.
gluten free cake in. There's
Yeah.
things like that, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's about knowing how they like to be appreciated as well. Because for some members of the team, it might be standing up in front of a staff meeting and being celebrated in front of people. But for someone, that'll be their absolute worst nightmare. So knowing actually that that person would rather you just had a private conversation with them and told them how great whatever it was that they'd done, or even just thanks for getting through a really tough day. Like, just it doesn't have to be massive. But we did quite a lot of work on when I was managing one setting. We looked at the five languages of appreciation, which are basically the same as like the love languages in a
Mhm.
relationship, but transferred into like a work context. And that really helped because it helped to get to know the team and whether they enjoy whether their appreciation language was around words of affirmation or whether it was quality time, or we found acts of service was quite a big one. So actually
Mhm.
having a manager who will help out at those busy times and go in and
Yeah.
clean the floor at the end of the day when you don't have time to do it and that kind of thing, that was quite high up on a lot of people's lists. Rather than, we were quite good at the time at the gifts, we were quite good at having like chocolatey treats and bits in the staff room and all of that stuff, but actually for some people it didn't mean anything.
Mm. I know what you mean. That was another comment I got from same setting. It was like I kind of went through. I'd been doing some work in the office, and I came through, and it was like I'm not going to say it was chaos at lunchtime, but it was busy. It was really super busy. You know what it's like at lunchtime. You're
Yeah,
feeding these hordes of children that are
yeah,
hungry and but desperate to get back to play all at the same time. And I was just like, oh, right, okay, hang on. I'll just stop and help. So I stopped and I helped and I carried on. It's like, what do you want me to do? Where do you need
yeah,
me? And it was later on, again, one member of staff came up to me and said, we're not used to that.
yeah,
It's like, why wouldn't I come and help? But then saying that, I have seen and worked with other managers that didn't come out and
mm,
help. And it doesn't make you feel appreciated that if the manager won't step onto the floor, it's almost like they've lost the point of, once upon a time they were a practitioner too and
yeah.
felt the same. You'd think you'd
Yeah,
want to do different.
yeah, it's like people have forgotten, isn't it? And it's hard because it's such a stressful job as well, being a manager. And I think it sometimes goes both ways, where there's a perception where, well, they just sat in the office all day not doing anything,
Hmm.
whereas there's a lot, and like the mental load and everything like that from for a leadership team is massive. But they need to the team that are working in the rooms need to see that you're willing to sort of step in and help. We used to have it quite a lot. If you could hear the babies crying in the baby room, when it becomes that kind of domino effect in a baby room, it just being able
Yeah,
to go in and say, right, let me help, give me some crying babies, we'll sing some songs, just an extra pair of hands to kind of help
yeah.
with that without them having to ask.
You gave the perfect example there. It was like one nursery I worked in as deputy, and the office was directly opposite the baby room. I think that
Yeah.
was it was well planned. It was well
Yeah.
planned. But you're like, you could sit there and I'm like, I'm just off into babies. I'll be back
Yeah.
in a minute.
Just go and help for a minute.
Absolutely, because it is. I mean, particularly the younger they are, the more stressful it can be. And I think it's that before it becomes that pressure cooker, it's taking that pressure off the staff,
Mhm.
and it makes them feel like they're not on their own, I think.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, just knowing that you can ask as well. So if you haven't noticed when you're in the office if someone's struggling, I think the fact that sometimes you do go in to help off your own back, then people do feel like they can come to you and ask for help. They don't feel like they're going to get kind of judged or made to feel like they should be doing better and they shouldn't need help or anything like that. So I think, yeah, doing it without being asked means that
Mhm.
you people are more open to coming when they do need help and asking.
Absolutely. I think it is that bit where, you know, I mean, I've worked in baby rooms quite a bit, and it is a really stressful one. It's like you say, the
Mhm.
domino effect. One
Yeah,
starts crying, then the next one, then the next one, then the next one.
yeah.
Before you know it, you're like sat in the middle going, "Well, I'm just going to cry too."
Yeah, we'll just all join in. That's when you
Uh,
start singing. That's always like the fail safe, I feel
oh
like
my
in babies. If
word!
if all the staff are singing, it's been quite a bad day.
Oh yeah, I mean, literally, you're going home rocking and singing "Twinkle Twinkle"
Yeah.
to your heart. Yeah, totally get it. There's other bits as well. I think we've talked a little bit, like, well, I'm not saying we've talked a little bit. We've touched on things like the Cake Fridays and the kind of the
Mhm.
tokenistic things, but there's other simple things as well, like just saying thank you as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what you were like, but I always, at the end of the day, if I've got a supply member of staff coming in or whatever, I'll always say thank you to them. But I always say
Mm,
thank you to my permanent staff as well,
yeah.
because why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yes, they're paid to turn up and do a job, but I appreciate the fact that they're there and they haven't gone home early or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, I think it's like the easiest thing you can do. And I'm not going to tell you that there wasn't some days where I was head down in work as people were leaving and I forgot to say thank you. But generally, I think if you can just be there at the end of the day saying thank you to the team, and even just through the day when when you're in and out of rooms and things like that, and just when you spot those little things, I think if you can catch them in the moment and say thank you or well done or um, just acknowledge it,
Mm,
then people, again, they feel valued and they feel seen. And I think that's just really important to um, keep them going when it is a tough day and it is a tough job. We know that. So anything you can
yeah.
do to just make them feel like someone's on their side, I think is really important.
Oh, definitely. I mean, the another sort of form of message as well. Like, I think a lot of nurseries now have like WhatsApp group chats and things. And I know there was
Hmm.
some days in a previous setting, and it was just absolute mental week, and yeah, it was just non-stop. But we got through it, and it was at the end of the week.
Yeah,
I would just like Friday night, once we'd closed, I'd get home about 6:30, and the first thing I would do before I did anything else was send out a mass group chat to everyone, just saying well done. We did this. We pulled
yeah,
together. We were a team. Everyone did their bit, and thank you. And
yeah,
that helped. I think that's what, it's the same team I was talking about where morale was so low, and I was building it back up. And I think things like that do help, and literally takes 5 minutes out of my day, but
yeah.
means a lot to somebody.
Yeah, I think we can overthink it, can't we? We can spend loads of time like overthinking, well, we'll put this benefit in and we'll put this perk in and we'll spend all this money on these big grand gestures. And actually, like you say, that message on a Friday night, just that you've noticed that it was a tough week and that everyone's got through it, um, makes a massive difference and um almost like just winds the week up and they can go, oh, okay, it was tough, but actually we've done it, we've all done it together. I can have my weekend now and kind of switch off almost.
Absolutely. I think that's that bit as well. I mean, there is more of a focus. Do you think there's more of a focus really since COVID on our well-being, like the staff and the adults within early years, their well-being since COVID? Do you think there is
Yeah,
more of a focus on it now?
I think there is, and I think there is a big focus with like younger people in general at the minute. And I know there can be a bit of a negative narrative around that in the sort of media and social media and things about this kind of new generation that are all so focused on their well-being and they're all skiving off and all this kind of thing. But actually, I think it's a really positive shift,
Mhm.
um, that people are more focused on looking after themselves as well and not burning themselves out and making sure that, like you said, that we need the staff to be in a good place or they're not going to be able to do the job that they're there to do. Um, and obviously, I'm not suggesting people have, you know, every other day off work. But if people need that bit of flexibility or just that more awareness around people's well-being and mental health and I think it's having practical things in place to support it. So knowing where you can signpost people to
Mhm.
when they do need support and having rather than just having like Cake Friday, having maybe a focus one week on a certain area of maybe mental health or just life, like the way the whatever the thing is you do on a Friday is maybe linked to some actual real life support that people can access as well. Um, and yeah, I think it's important that it doesn't that signposting needs to happen because otherwise you end up with this environment where it all falls onto the managers trying to support all these staff members with
Mm.
whatever they might have going on. So I think there needs to be that balance where a manager is able to say, you can come and talk to me, but then they have um they're able to signpost to the support that person needs externally as well. Um,
Yeah,
so
that
they don't become kind of agony aunt to everyone.
I know because I just about backed myself into a corner. Like as soon as you're saying that, I'm like, yeah, been there. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
almost backed myself into a corner, and I'm like, no, why am I doing this? I should be, if somebody's struggling with something, it's like, have you thought about going to see so and so about this, or you know,
Yeah.
do you feel you benefit from this? And it's putting the ball back in their court for them to make the decision, not for you to make the decision for them, which I think is important.
Yeah.
It's like
And not for you to
empowering them.
carry the weight of that.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's
I think
difficult for the manager.
it's yeah, it's a the management's a really challenging role, and you're juggling so many different things, and you want to have that supportive open door policy, and you absolutely should. But I've definitely seen, and I myself have been guilty of this, and I've seen other managers that I've supported be guilty of just being that person who will try and sort everyone's problems out for them, and we're not qualified to do that by any
No.
stretch of the imagination. So, yeah, I think it's really important. I used to have a folder with kind of various kind of leaflets and numbers and all this stuff, so I knew I was kind
Mhm.
of ready with that kind of stuff to pass on.
It's a
And we
really
did
good
have a sheet
idea.
just of numbers that staff could access as well. Yeah, I was prepared for
That is
any
really good. I
eventuality.
think if you don't mind, I'm going to steal that idea. Thanks. I'll take that top tip.
Steal
Thank you very
away.
much. There is that bit though. It's like you say, it's important to have that open door policy as well, isn't it?
Hmm. Yeah,
Try not to be the agony aunt or agony uncle, whatever. But it is important that staff feel that they can talk to you and approach you as well. I think that's hugely important that you're not just this ogre that sits in an office and makes demands.
yeah, yeah. I think you need, and it's that thing again of getting to know your team and knowing a little bit about their kind of home life and being able to ask, how was that? How was parents' evening the other night when you went? And or like how was that date night you went on with your husband at the weekend? And just having a little knowledge, and then it opens the door to those conversations where they might actually need to say, "Well, do you know what? Parents' evening was really tough. Like we had this is kind of how it went, and I don't really know what to deal with it." And just knowing that they can talk to you about stuff that isn't work related as well. And
Mhm.
again, not to the extent that you're everyone's agony aunt, but just that you know about them and you value their home life as well as their work life, and you know how important that is to them. Because I think sometimes it can that flexibility, and we can't always give it. But
Yeah.
be, if staff know that you'll try and get them to appointments and you'll try and get to these parents' evenings and whatever it is, I think they just see that you value them holistically and not just in a work context. You're not just valuing their well-being so they're at work all the time. You actually care about them.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of made me think about something I did very recently with my own team. So I had I had one of those pull your hair out kind of weeks one recently
Uh-huh.
where I had one member of staff who was off with her little one, which is fine, and then I had another member of staff who was going to come in and cover, and then she ended up sick. Somehow we managed to cover it, as it's as early years miracles always happen, and we somehow
Yeah.
managed to cover these things. Um, but it was tough. And I thought, right, okay, when everyone's back in, I didn't want to put this in the group chat because I thought this isn't appropriate. I need to talk to everyone face to face so that they know that I'm being genuine and that they know I'm being sincere. But what I did was I talked to them and said, I'm not going to lie, finding cover is difficult because we're only a small setting. Finding cover is difficult, but that's not your problem. If you need
Yeah.
to be off because your little one's not well or you're not well, my concern is that your little one gets better and that you are able to be there to look after them, or that you get better because then the more you keep trying to come back to work, the longer you're going to be off. Okay. I want you to be able to look after yourselves. And that's my priority there. Never mind the
Hmm.
hassle that's going on in the background. That's my job. I'll sort it. But just take that time because you need it. I've got people that I know won't mess me about and just drop off every 5 minutes. And I thought that message was really important for them to hear. And it wasn't
Yeah.
just platitudes. It was genuine because I wanted them to hear it and know that, in all honesty, yes, it's difficult, but
Hmm.
it's necessary. I need them to do it. And it came back to bite me on the backside the other day because, yeah, being off work and not well. Um, I tried to go in. I'm like, I'm really not well enough. It's like, well, what are you doing here? You told
Yeah.
us that we should contact you. And I was like, yeah, okay. Basically, I got sent home by my deputy manager, which is fair enough.
I like it. Yeah, yeah.
So they were looking
Yeah.
after me as well. So there is that back and forth there that
Yeah.
if you're valuing them, they'll value you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen that work really well within teams at the settings I was last working for where they do look after each other, and I think that's okay. It's fine for there to be that vulnerability a little bit from the leadership, obviously to to a certain extent, but for them to be able to say to you, look, should you be here today, is like shows that you've got that relationship with your team where because you're honest with them, and they
Mhm.
can feel like they can be honest back to you, and it's not going to be taken in the wrong way. It's going to be taken in the
Yeah.
way that that it's meant, which is you care about them, so they care about you.
I think that's it. Is like there's a an open and honest culture that needs to be developed, isn't there?
Hmm.
Which will create that safe space, that safe area of well-being for everyone, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and I think you don't want to go into work sort of scared and worried, do you? Because that's not good for your well-being. So anything that you can, any environment that you create where if they are having a tough day, they can come and say, "Look, I'm not at my best today. I sort of
Mhm.
know that I'm not. I'm fine to be here, but I know it's not going to be my best day." Then you can go, "That's okay. We'll give you a bit of grace today. That's fine. We'll try and give you tasks that maybe don't need you to be at your full kind of capacity." And they not going in kind of worried about that. And also being able to come to you if they've made a mistake or are struggling with something. That I just think it's so important that there's not a culture of sort of fear, because for well-being for anyone, that's just sort of it's just not going to help, is it?
No, I mean I've had that sort of both sides of that kind of argument. Really, I've had the side where any minor mistake I've made I was made to feel like it was the biggest mistake in the world and that I was
Mhm.
useless at my job. And I had 13 years of that. But the positive I've taken from that is that's not how you manage people. That's not what you do. That's
Yeah,
not the kind of environment you want. But then I've also worked in a setting where and I'll hold my hands up to this. I was still fairly new at the setting. I hadn't realized the child um, was dairy free, and I accidentally gave them cow's milk. Not a life threatening one. I will hold my hands up and say it's not life threatening, and they didn't
hmm,
have a huge amount of it, but it did bring them out in blotches. So a quick dose of Piriton, they were fine. But the manager wasn't like down on me like a ton of bricks. They were like,
yeah,
okay, right, what can we do so that everybody's clear about this? She saw it as a learning opportunity for everybody, not just to
yeah.
pinpoint the blame onto one person. And that was really good as well. And I took that on board as well.
Yeah, I think that's it just makes a massive difference when like you feel like someone's got your back, I suppose, isn't it? It's human error does happen. And I think most managers can see when something was human error and something was actually someone that just isn't bothered or um and couldn't be bothered that day, sort of thing, to pay attention. And I think often then the job is right, how can we minimize the chance of human error? Because human error it can happen, can't it? We
Yeah.
all have those days. So how do you put things in place to prevent that? And the more that's in place, the more supported this team feel to kind of be able to get on with a job without having to worry so much. And I don't mean that in a way of not worrying about allergies or anything like that, but just in terms of
No.
the systems are there to support them to help prevent those errors from
Yeah,
happening.
you come up to a child and go, I can't remember, but I know where to look for the info. Let me just go and do
Yeah.
that first. Yeah, I mean, I've done a similar thing in my current setting where we have what we call the AIM sheet, the allergies, intolerances, and medication sheet,
Hmm.
and it's there and it's just quick reference rather than having to go onto the tablet to go and get the information
Yeah.
about each individual task. We just have them like the details are there, and it's one of those things. It makes the process simpler for everyone, and it's again just something that I've taken, and it's taken that little bit of stress out that I
Yeah.
can't remember if this child's dairy free or not, or whatever. Oh, that's it. There was
Yeah.
a child the other day
Sorted.
I couldn't remember if they took eggs or not, and it was like I'm getting the wrong child here. Open the cupboard door. Yeah, I am getting the wrong child. That's okay. They can have eggs.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think anything you can do to relieve the pressure that the team are feeling on a day to day, because there's so much they do have to think about. So anything you can have in place that just lifts that stress a little bit from them
Mhm.
um, is really important.
I think as well, like we were talking just previously about um, the activities and like praising the staff for the things that they do with the children. It's like, I mean, I have a culture where the staff are free to try anything they want to, any ideas and activities they want to do with the children, as long as they can tell me their why.
Yeah.
That important why, tell me
Yeah.
why. Like, for example, I walked out from having my lunch, walked into the main playroom, and the whole place was upside down because two staff had decided to change it round. I went, okay,
Hmm.
why? And they turned around and told me why. So I just went, okay, carry on, bye.
Yeah.
And left them to it because they had something in mind. And it was like, okay, brilliant. That's fantastic. They'd spotted something and they were praised for it because that's what needed to happen. And they'd spotted that and seen it. And I praised them for it because,
Mm.
why wouldn't I? That's something really, really keen that they've they've done and spotted.
Yeah, I think sort of honing into their kind of strengths and things like that and letting them be creative. And again, it's that listening to them and valuing their kind of strengths. And I think it can come into kind of training and things like that as well, because we're really quick to give staff training for areas that they're not as confident in or need to develop. But I think sometimes some of the best kind of outcome from training and professional development is when we send practitioners on things that they're really interested in and really
Yeah.
passionate about. And it then them coming back to the setting will probably then actually have more impact on the staff who aren't as confident in that area than it would have done to send them to the training, because they would have not been particularly interested in it potentially. Um, and I think I sort of believe in that for children as well. Sometimes we focus too much on what they need to develop and rather than the strengths that they already have.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think for the team for professional development, letting them letting them focus on their strengths and what they really want, that what they're really passionate about has a much bigger impact.
Yeah, definitely. I think that was another thing I introduced as well was having an hour's CPD time. You know,
Mm,
just they're free to do whatever they need to or want to in this time, and it's covered. And great,
yeah,
brilliant. And it's something that's appreciated. And again, it doesn't cost me anything, which I think as managers we really do have to look at the purse strings a lot. Um,
yeah,
which is
yeah,
like sad but true, but that's what we kind of have to do.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's something that if you can do it and it's appreciated and it's being used well, then do it.
yeah, yeah. And I think, like you said, it doesn't have to be like none of the stuff we've really talked about today is really costly. That's kind of the point, I guess, is it's not about um I think you're gonna always, when you're looking at kind of appreciation, you pay and kind of that kind of setting is always going to come first. But then ha that's kind of not often in the manager's hands anyway. So when you're looking at managers and room leaders, then it's like cheap, easy, normally free things make a massive difference. And I think we can get really tied up on spending loads of money, and it doesn't necessarily make an impact. And I think with a lot of these things as well, when the culture's there, then you find that the team are doing it with each other. So it doesn't even need to come from leadership. So
Mhm.
when leadership are doing it, then you hear in the corridor like someone saying, "Oh, thanks so much for jumping into the room at lunchtime. It was a bit crazy. It really helped having an extra pair of hands," and doing that sort of specific thanking of each other. So it
Yeah.
just instills that culture rather than it only being the manager that's ever the one that's thanking everyone. If they are modeling it really well, then everybody gets involved and it makes an even bigger difference.
No, it really does. I think, yeah, it's one of these things that when you're creating that culture that we were talking about, it really does start from the top down, doesn't it? Because,
Yeah,
it's almost creating that safe dome across everybody. And it has to start you start the dome and just bring it all the way down to kind of envelop everybody and keep them safe and look after them. And it really does have to start with us. And like you say, it doesn't need to be costly. I mean, most of the things, like you say, we've talked about are free, which is
yeah,
great.
yeah. It's not as big as I think we think it is sometimes. I think we can um it like you say, like starting with just remember to say thank you to everyone at the end of the day, that can be a really massive starting point. And it's something that if people aren't doing it and start doing it, the team will be like, oh, okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's great. And they will notice it. And it even just that first time of doing it will give them that little boost. And then the more often they get that, and then the more specific you can make it as well. So thanking them for something that you've noticed that day
Yeah.
as well, rather than just a generic one. I spent I spent when I left one of the settings to go into the kind of went from manager to this over kind of head of quality over a few settings role. I spent ages putting these little gifts together for everyone. They weren't massively costly, but I had bought some bits and pieces, and then I'd written like a little postcard for each person, like personalised about them and like thanking them for specific things. And one of the members of staff came to me and was like, "All the gifts were lovely, but the postcard, like, you could have just done that." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, exactly."
I
They
think
didn't
so.
need the stuff that cost money. Was they liked it, but actually, what had meant a lot was that I'd spent time writing these messages to thank them for things that were specific to like the relationship I had with that person.
Oh, that's so true. I mean, I did that a wall of good wishes we called it,
Uh-huh.
and like our parents as well could add. like we had sticky labels, and they could put a sticky label with a little message to eat, and that meant a lot. And again, cost nothing, but it's
Yeah.
knowing that you're appreciated and valued as well. And that's really important to your well-being, knowing that you're actually doing a really
Hmm.
good job and people are seeing it and noticing it,
Yeah.
and that you'll continue to do it then.
Yeah. Yeah. I think yeah, sometimes you can feel like you come into work on a day and nobody would notice if you were there or not, or they would because you're doing a lot of stuff, but it's not, yeah, no one ever kind of acknowledges it. And I think if you can just start with that, there's loads of other stuff you can do following on from that. But I think if you can just start with that, then it will, everything will kind of go in the right direction, I guess.
I mean, the one thing we're saying is we don't have to get rid of Cake Friday, but we can keep
No, never get rid of Cake Friday. I'm a massive feeder. I've got a reputation. That one of the settings that I heard someone shout from a staff room once when I'd got there, "Is Mel in today?" And it was because there was just treats in the staff room because I'd stopped at the shop on the way. I was like,
it.
oh, they know when I'm here when there's food. So I can't, yeah, I'm all on board with Cake Fridays.
Oh, brilliant. Well, unfortunately, time has caught up with us. I can't believe that 30
Gosh,
minutes gone
yeah.
so fast, but it's been absolutely brilliant. And I think it's that bit, I think to kind of sum it up is like, don't overthink it. Just
Hmm.
start with a simple thank you is a really good way of building that positive culture, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And remembering that whatever you are modeling, the rest of the staff will pick up on. So it will very quickly become the culture if you're showing that to the team as well.
Definitely. Well, thank you very much for talking to me today, Melanie Shepherd.
Thank you.